Segregation in Education, and we're talking to Miss LWynn and Miss AEpperson. And of course, Miss Epperson, before we had our first commercial break, we were talking about the class of 1966. And I think you were indicating some very, very prominent individuals who graduated in that class. And let's continue that to give you an opportunity to talk about some of those persons.
Well, Ms. Wynn is going to talk about 66. I'm going to
talk about
mention
62.
those 62.
Okay, I'm sorry, 62. Good, very good, 62.
There are a number of small business representatives in the Nashville area who are graduates of that class. I think what's more important than to say globally we have a lot of recognition is to realize that we have a congenial group of alumni in the Nashville area who work very hard together to keep the museum, for example, or to encourage young people to remain in school and obtain their education.
And of course, these individuals are still doing important things in the area of Nashville, and they still recognize Pearl High School as having a common bond.
The school.
The
high school.
Okay, very good. Well, about the class of 1966, Ms. Will, let's talk about that class.
Oh, the class of 1966 we think was one of the more illustrious classes, and was a class that made history. In 1966, we became the first class to participate in the TSSAA basketball championship. That was the first year that it was integrated. But let me put a comma there and go back to 65, because it was the class of 65 that enabled the class of 66. When the class of 65 played Father Ryan, which was the first time that an all-black school played an all-white school, and it was some concern throughout the Nashville community that after the game that there would be a big race ride. Well, unfortunately, Pearl lost that game in 65 with the last-minute shot by Willie Earl Brown, who was an African-American who played for Father Ryan. Needless to say, there was not a riot. After all, Willie Earl Brown was from the African-American community. A lot of people knew Willie Earl and respected him as a tremendous athlete. The following year, when the TSSAA desegregated, well, the Pearl High class of 66 went all the way and won the state championship. We had a perfect season, 31-0. Several of our members of that particular class, Perry Wallace, for example, went on to sign a grant aid with Vanderbilt University, becoming the first African-American to play basketball in the SEC. Walter Murray, who was a classmate and also class president, also joined Perry at Vanderbilt and ultimately became the first African-American to sit on the board of trust at Vanderbilt University. Several members in the class of 66 have managed to obtain a first status. That class is very interesting because it was right in the middle, if you will, of the Black Revolution. It was during the time when Black Power was beginning to come in. We were right there at the 64 signing of the Civil Rights Act, the 65 Civil Rights Act. So we were right in the middle of that Black Revolution, and there is a bond. Our class gets together every 5 years for a class reunion, and we've done that. Well, we just celebrated our 30th reunion back in June of last year.
Now, Ms. Epperson, I understand that quite soon that you're going to be celebrating what might be considered a centennial at Pearl. And let's talk about that, since we've dealt with these classes of 62 and the classes of 66. But with the centennial, you're inviting all of the various classes back to Pearl as to become a part of it. Let's talk about the inception of that idea.
Okay, before the centennial, the class of 62 will celebrate its 35th anniversary July 5th of this year. The kickoff for the centennial celebration, which will be held the second weekend in August of '98, was held on Sunday, May 25th at the New Era Club. The congregation there was very outstanding. It gives an idea of what we look forward to next year. Last year, there were 385 former students who registered to participate in that reunion. It's a celebration to bring together a lot of people who may or may not participate in individual classes. Included in that agenda for next year will be a gospel concert. There will also be a band concert, which is very significant because Pearl High hosted one of the only concert bands in the city. And many of those alumni will come back and perform in that band concert again, probably with the direction of Mr. Marcus Gunner, who was a long-time band director at the school. So that will be the second weekend next year. In the meantime, we do have an ongoing activity during the months of July, August, and September, the third Sunday of every month for those months, between the hours of 4:30 and 6:30. The museum is open. To my knowledge, the Pearl High Alumni Museum is the only high school black museum in the state, under the direction of Ted Lennox, who, with a number of people from various classes, have worked very hard over the past few years to bring together the artifacts from Pearl High School.
And so you've got in existence a large number of artifacts from various individuals. And I would imagine that folks who do have something that they consider to be significant and that they would like to donate to this museum, you're ready to accept that. Is that what we're saying this morning?
Yes. Ted Lennox would be very happy to receive from any interested party artifacts that they feel may be of importance to him. A lot of people have contacted Ted with information, some of which we already had, some of which we didn't have. We're interested in all of that information.
And so it's a constant growing kind of activity.
It's a very nice museum if you have not visited that museum. The location is very interesting as well. The old boy and girl gym locker rooms were hauled out, and that's the museum location now. You enter from the Joe Johnston side, and that's where the museum is located.
It's all part of the old, formerly the old Pearl High School that is now the Pearl Magnet School. Is that what we're saying now?
That's
where
It's the Martin Luther King Magnet School, but it is in the former building of Pearl High School. Pearl had 3 locations. I already mentioned the one in South Nashville. In 1916, it moved to 16th Avenue North, what is now Ireland. And in 1937, due to growth of student population, it moved to the corner of 17th and Joe Johnston. When we talk about the artifacts that are contained in the museum, there is a graduation.
And let me interrupt you here, Mr. Wynn. We've got about 5 or 6 seconds before our commercial break, and we'll be back, and we'll talk about that when we come back. We'll be back with you following this short commercial break. And segregation in education.